Well, hi there folks. Somebody asked me on my YouTube channel the other day how my quest to fly FPV with a fixed-wing aircraft was going. So I figured I'd give you an update on that, but also ask you the question, was it a clever idea to use a pair of four-way JST connectors as the video input for my SpeedyBee board, or was it actually an accident waiting to happen? And yes, it is the same as a balance plug on a 3S LiPo. Anyway, you'll see the relevance of that question later, but getting back to the point, what is the current state of my quest for FPV? You may remember my initial plan was to use one of my Lidl foamies. I built 15 of these and quite a few of the small ones. Initial plan was this, but I decided in the end that there wasn't actually enough room for speed controller, receiver, transmitter, etc. in such a small model. As you can see, I did eventually convert the Lidl into FPV as well. Still need to do a few more tests with it, as you'll see later on, but currently Bixler is number one and it's ready to go. Everything's set up. SpeedyBee F405 wing mini flight controller successfully installed. Return to home works, which was the important thing that I learned along my journey. And of course I've used Inav to set everything up, and that in itself was a huge journey. But there's plenty online about that, and in fact I'm still learning more about Inav as I go. But anyway, I improved the old Bixler from my initial build by putting a shelf in here so that I could actually put the SpeedyBee F405 wing board in there. Got a cutout here, which meant receiver could go in there, and as you can see it's all rather a tight fit. So receivers in there, SpeedyBee there, 2200 LiPo goes there, and that's actually ready to go. I've got my old goggles that I bought a good few years ago in anticipation of this moment. Eachine, quite old ones now, VR 007s, and I've had good test results with these, getting as far as I usually fly up at my local strip anyway. But I've also got my little homemade box goggles, which take this little receiver here, just slots in. That works very well too. Got to actually decide which is the best as far as reception goes. So that is absolutely sorted. I've got a volunteer that's going to spot for me. Everything's working on it. Though I did have a couple of disasters on the way. I'd left these terminals exposed here, and if you remember, tiniest little contact. I can't show you the thing. Trust me, it's very well taped up now. But the tiniest little contact between that little tiny edge of the USB there and that was enough to blow the Bluetooth module up, which is why I ended up buying another Bluetooth module direct from SpeedyBee, and I put the old board with no Bluetooth capability in that one, and this one now has the new board fully functional, and look, the terminals are covered up there. And because I had a spare board kicking around and the weather's bad, decided to actually finish the job on this one. I said I had a few mishaps on the way. It's been a steep learning curve. One thing I did, which I thought was pretty clever, was so that I could switch transmitters, I bought some four-way JST connectors. So as you can see, I can change transmitter there very easily, plug in, plug out. And the cameras are connected via these three-way servo extension leads. So that was dead easy. So, having got the Bixler totally sorted and still not flyable weather, decided to have another go at this one. Made a much better installation this time with the old board, which doesn't have Bluetooth, but I was still able to actually plug it in on the USB connector, plug it into my PC and change settings, so that's good. So what did I do this time? Well, I mentioned the plugs on it were the same as the balance plug on a 3S LiPo, and because of the limited space, the tail of the transmitter on this one was in here. Plus I'd switched from using a 2S 1000 to a 3S, and like a fool, instead of plugging in the transmitter, I plugged in the balance plug, which of course has got 4.2 volts on each little pin. Plugging the balance plug basically into the SpeedyBee board video in port was not good, because the video in other words, on-screen display capability, which gives you all the data from the flight controller, is no longer working. So in answer to the question that I posed at the beginning of this, was it a clever idea or a dumb idea? It's not a really clever idea to use connector plugs that can be confused with something else. It was in fact an accident waiting to happen. Fortunately, the board's not totally dead, appears to still be okay when I plug it into my PC, so I'm hoping that things like loiter and return to home are still going to work. Still need to test that. So it looks like I'll still be able to use this for FPV flying, but without the luxury of on-screen display. I came up with a workaround as far as powering the video transmitter goes, and it will take up to 24 volts. I've made a little adapter just tapping the two outside pins, which means I can tap the 12 volts from the 3S LiPo that's actually driving the plane. And to avoid a similar mistake happening again, I have very carefully labelled now on the Bixler and on this one which is a video input, so as not to make that same mistake again. But I guess the moral of the story is be very careful if you're using adapters that might be mistaken for something else. Be very careful what you do and label things properly. As far as cameras go for this pink one, I've got a lead there so that I can plug a keychain cam which actually gives video out plus records just on the side there. So I'm hoping that's going to work too. So I've actually got two versions now of my FPV setup, and that's a 1300 3S in there. On the subject of batteries, another thing that came up during the course of my investigations was the on-screen display has capability of showing you what current's being drawn, and even this little one here was drawing 5 or 6 amps, and I was going to use an 800 3S. Well, from my reckoning, if you're allowing for say 20% remaining for you to get back and land, I'd probably get all of 6 minutes flying with that. So that was another downside of using a small plane. If I'm lucky, I might get 10 minutes from the Bixler. But I can see now why all the models I saw on YouTube being used for FPV had really big battery bays, so they could get 3,000 or 4,000 milliamp batteries in and have really long flights. So in summary, it's been quite a journey, but I got there in the end. On a brighter note, before that little mishap there, plugging the wrong lead in and wrecking the video side of this board, and note I have actually got those terminals covered now, I was rather chuffed with the installation of FPV and SpeedyBee on this tiny little Lidl. And if you're crazy enough to actually want to try it, I'll just show you what I've actually done here. Showed you the transmitter there, and that's the lead, so that I can plug in and get 12 volts from the balance plug on this. The right way round, note it's marked black, black to black, plus keychain cam, and that doesn't need to be wired into that board. But what I've done here is, as you can see, made a shelf here, so in fact that LiPo will actually slide quite a long way back in there if necessary to get the centre of gravity right. Plus managed to shoehorn in the FS6 receiver right into there, antennas under there, and of course that's the GPS there. So all in all, I was rather chuffed with that up until that moment where I'd managed to blow up not only the Bluetooth but the video part of this board as well. But you know, these things happen, and I thought I'd share that with you. As far as the Lidls go, the good news is this week, and it's only once a year, Lidl gliders are back in the shops again. And I may have mentioned, not once but about a dozen times, I've made 15 of these little glider conversions. Singles, twins, biplanes, you name it, I've done it. Even EDFs, Vulcans, and 5 of the small ones. So if you want to get into a bit of Lidl converting, now's the time to do it. £7.99 I think they were in Lidl. Object of that, I've just bought 3 more. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with them. But like I say, if you want to get into it, I'll leave you with 2 of my videos on the subject. My little Spitfire build, which is a very detailed building blog, plus my twin Fusey, which is absolutely a beautiful flyer. But I'll stop waffling on. Hopefully I'll catch you all again soon with some successful FPV flights coming soon when the weather improves. If you've enjoyed this, please give it a like, and why not subscribe if you want to see some more of this stuff. But I'll stop waffling and leave you with these 2 videos. So hopefully catch you all again later. Bye for now.